Good afternoon. Welcome to the workshop on National Enterprise Architecture. I would now request all the panelists to take seat on the dais. I have with me Mr. Kevin L. Jackson, founder and CEO of Government Cloud as panelist. I have Mr. Craig Price from PCCW Global, Mr. Dr. Sanjeev Kumar Gupta from Government of India, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, and Mr. Mushtaq Ahmed from NIPSIS. I would first request Mr. Ramesh from E&Y, who has been working with us to develop the National Enterprise Architecture for Bangladesh, to come on the dais and give the presentation on National Enterprise Architecture. Before that, I would also like to say that National Enterprise Architecture is taking into cognizance all the enterprise activities, and we have another component which is the human capacity building, and where we are taking care of the human capacity development under the project Leveraging ICT for Growth, Employment and Governance project. So the first thing that we would like to know and learn about is the Bangladesh Enterprise Architecture and Interoperability Framework, which is now being developed. We have the great honor to have help from A2I, a project from the Prime Minister Office, who have been working on the e-governance sector for quite a long time. So they have been very kind and very proactive, and they have provided us with a lot of input. Apart from that, we also had meetings with a lot of stakeholders. Based on the input from the stakeholders and A2I, we have designed and developed a draft concept which will be further evaluated, and your comments will be taken and incorporated to build the Bangladesh Enterprise Architecture and Interoperability Framework. Thank you. And now I welcome Mr. Ramesh to come and give the presentation on Bangladesh Enterprise Architecture. Thank you.
Thanks. First of all, I will like to thank you, BCC and ATY, for giving us the opportunity to working with them to create the Bangladesh National Enterprise Architecture. What a big word, right? So, the first question comes in our mind when we talk about enterprise architecture. What or why we want enterprise architecture? Why we need this? Are not we designing right now? Because when I started in December first week with BCC and ICT, a lot of initiatives were already there. You have a very good NIT initiative. Already A2I is doing quite a good job in e-services, consolidating the portals. Data center consolidation initiative is already there. So, what more and how? That is the question, right? And that is from where we should start thinking of that what enterprise architecture should more do for us. So this is the typical slide. You will see whenever somebody talks about enterprise architecture, there's a slide. Look at the bigger picture, right? Instead of focusing on the individual pieces. But I would say no. I think it's not or and. You always start with the idea. It evolves. But look at the bigger picture when. This is the question. When? Because idea always starts with a POC, pilot, small things. Idea is big, but it starts with a small. Then it becomes bigger. How to scale it? I have done some good e-services. I've developed something. How to scale it nationwide? Now, one district or 100 people are getting served by those applications. How to serve the complete nation with it? This is where the bigger picture, the enterprise architecture of the concept and the design and development of enterprise architecture comes in. This is what is expected and should be expected from Bangladesh national enterprise architecture. If, uh, if we see the typical growth of any government in the, sorry, okay. So if we see the typical growth of any government or any application in the e-governance, these are the few steps which we take. From first we try to create a presence, that's portal or the information which is there on the portal, information for the citizen, information for the stakeholders which is needed. Then it starts getting into the interactions. We start interacting, giving the feedback, frequently asked questions. Then we start doing transactions. For example, the workflows gets into the scene, the e-service implementation gets into the scene, and then slowly we start getting a very quality data into the database, and then the transformation happens when the government gets into the decision making mode, which we also call the intelligence. But one thing is very, this never happens as a big bang. Interaction or a presence starts today, and then after 1 year you start transaction, and after that transaction comes same data, you have to create a support, different support system as well. So that continuity between each stage is what design is all about. When we design, we architect, then we have to ensure that when we are taking baby steps, the final step and the first step is in sync. We are creating something which is in sync. Just imagine, we have a very good application which is doing a very good workflow, but it's not storing a very valuable data. So you will be serving good, but the moment you will start doing analytics on that particular data, you will be in a big problem. You will be investing more, and that is what the design is all about when we talk about design. So the growth of the government or the department or the application should be in such a seamless manner that the design beneath should support this whole growth. So, like I said, when EY team started here, so we took the base as Vision 2021, which was there, and frankly speaking, I took only one word majorly, and which is in between, which is citizen will not go to services. Services should come to citizen. It's a very simple line, and sounds very good. But just to make it happen, let us see what all we need to do. Maybe we have to integrate all the departments to get one service served to him. So now service needs to go to his doorstep. So last mile connectivity, you have to reach there. Now we are talking about the infrastructure as well. Not only that, the service will include a lot of secure data, will also a lot of secure transactions. So a lot of security is also getting into the scene. Now, when I'm saying last mile connectivity, then we are also talking about online offline kind of versions and online offline kind of solutions, because we cannot expect that every time you'll have online connectivity every time. So just this one word, if you expand it, you will see the complete design requirement, the architecture requirement which is needed to achieve this one thing, that the service should reach the doorstep of the citizen. Just to few significant points which we can see that the IDA will deliver to government as a stakeholder is the network government reduction in transaction cost, simplified administrative procedure. So how reduction in transaction cost? Yes, if you reduce the face-to-face interaction, I'll just share the e-pension which as a part of implementation service we'll be doing. When you reduce the face-to-face interaction, you also reduce the cost which you are incurring in serving that citizen. So those kind, not only this, enterprise architecture also brings the reusability into your components. What you have already invested on, what you should build upon, all these things should be taken care of. And this is how the reduction in cost, transaction cost will impact. Citizen definitely faster service, innovation in service, and greater citizen empowerment. Technology advantages will be the advantage of cutting edge technologies, open data, and open standards. We talk a lot about open standards and open data, and balance between information security and privacy. Yeah, so information security, privacy, how much is going to be there on public domain? When I was designing the second largest e-governance project in India, that is ESIC, it was a very big question because like we were covering more than 1,400 dispensaries and 5 crore beneficiaries, and covering in terms of their insurance, in terms of their patient records, in terms of their employment records and all those things. So there were a lot of question on that. What transparency or what we mean by security and how it should be handled. So these are some benefits, but let's come to the point where I started for. When I started here, I saw that a lot of significant ICT initiatives have already been started. We have gone through in details with few of the initiatives like land record system. We have gone through your e-office. E-office is I'm seeing a lot of RFPs are coming out who are saying that use e-office and integration with e-office is required. So that means the automation of within the file system of within the department is something which has been created by A2I and which has been very well accepted. BCC is taking initiative towards consolidating the data center, coming towards the cloud initiatives and the security, the hosting all the departmental applications in one place, which will not only optimize the infrastructure, that will not only give you the not only optimizing it, but all the availability and reliability of those application will go up with these initiatives. And then, as I said, mature your citizen data, that is an ID, which that initiative, we had a meeting with the election commission department, and I must say that kind of mature data and the clean data you have, and that the kind of deep implications and the citizen identity resolution happens on that particular data is really commendable and respectable. So that is one more, and that can be reused, and that should be used across. And I'm sure that there are a lot of push demand is coming in by banks, by other departments that okay, so authorize the citizen or to identify the citizen, we need the access of that particular data. And then your birth and death registration initiative, health departments. Yeah, one more interesting thing is the health department has started a health information exchange system. This is one more thing which I really liked in Bangladesh is that the health information exchange system started first, then the initiative for health management information system, which is good, which is needed. HMIS is needed, laboratory management is needed. But what a country needs a single source of truth for the health information, the single repository for the patients, single repository for the service providers, health service providers. So this initiative is really, many steps ahead, right? And the way it is being designed, I had like almost 2 3 hours of discussion with ThoughtWorks, and the way they are taking that approach, it's really good that how the data is open, how the the integrations or the interoperabilities is being ensured with those data which has been ensured across will be implemented. It's under design, and I think the implementation has been started. But if you see, like I said, so we have e-file system, we have land record system with many divisions using it. We have NID. What NID, when the most of the department will start seeking data from NID, what should be the strategy? How we are going to separate that critical citizen data and the kind of accessibility, the kind of load, the kind of hits that particular NID system will start doing into, or all other initiatives which proven on the ground that yes, there is an acceptability, yes, there is a need for such kind of services. These things has been proven. After proving, there is a next step which is needed. How to scale it? How so? Few things which we realized that which is needed is first interoperability among ministries. So yes, there are for example, again with NID, in Bangladesh we also have 35, 40 more citizen databases. They are not as authorized or as authentic as NID, but they are. So do we really need that, or just a stable and approachable interoperable process can ensure the reusability of the data or the investment which we are doing in NID. Similarly, the information exchange across the departments. One of the initiatives which Bangladesh is thinking of is a single window access. Single window access for the public clearances or the multiple services. If I need a one single window or one single access to get my multiple services done or committed, then how you are going to do all these things? Still, the departments are not exchanging the data across. There is no information exchange. Right. Thirdly, the critical data like citizen, like land records should have a single source of truth. You should not, we should not go with multiple copies of the same data. Then the data integrity gets into question. Data security also gets into the question. Then the language. So, the first day when we started, we presented that okay, this is what enterprise architecture is going to do. The ED sir, he said, okay, tell us. We have one problem that even the Bengali, we have multiple fonts being used. How are you going to resolve this? Now, this is what we call a tailored enterprise architecture. This is what Bangladesh needs. And this is what needs to be addressed. That if there are multiple fonts, if that is interoperability, that will sound very funny that okay, this guy is standing here and talking about fonts. But just imagine, I created one document in one font and I'm sending it to you, and you can't open it on your machine on your iPad or a laptop just because I've used different font and you have used different font. That is the problem, right? And there are multiple things. So that's why we have. And when we talk about interoperability or we talk about fonts, countries like European countries they don't have because they have a single language mostly. But country like India, we have multilinguals. So we have different kind of approach. In here, I came across that this multiple font kind of introduction is needed. Second is reachability, which we identified that the last mile reach. Okay, so last mile reach very obviously comes in. Why don't we make a mobile apps? But do we have all the users using mobile apps? We are also implementing one of the services where we are using just SMS, and we will share with you that how a simple SMS based application can make a difference or UDI. You don't have to be that last mile reachability. So there is a supply chain application which only uses J2ME application for your mobile apps with a very small and low end device can use those apps. So when we talk about reachability, it's just not mobile apps we are talking about. Connectivity, definitely. So connectivity, for my perception, I'll take it in two ways. So how the network architecture, the whole country network should go. Yes, that should be thought about. The initiatives has been taken, but at the same time, let's accept that remotest to remotest places, there will be a challenge with connectivity. So can I say that connectivity means just not the internet or the the broadband or the he's connected with the net is the connectivity. I may say that my application ensures that the basic thing which you need to use with to interact or transact with government or any services, I will ensure that even if you can work offline but in an optimized way to ensure that you still be connected with me, or you send some request, you are disconnected. Whenever you will get connected again, your request should be served back to you. So those kind of things should be taken care of. That is what connectivity for me is. So definitely, when there are new applications which are going to come, and there will be the new systems which will be introduced, we will also get into the challenge of migrations, application migrations, the data migrations, or even the change management. So the as part of the Bangladesh NEA, will also be coming out with the migration strategies, how those migrations should take place, how without losing the integrity and the security integrity of that particular data which has been stored or is being used by this particular application should be migrated successfully. No, it's and when I'm saying migration, it's not about only data. So the complete migration can happen with the complete landscape can change, but there has to be a strategy, the process in place we should do or we should achieve this seamlessly. Okay, so these are the few things which we think is the baseline for Bangladesh National Enterprise Architecture, interoperability, mobile platform, technology architecture, business standards and guidelines, and open standards. There are a few baselines. This is on a 60,000 feet. When we see that okay, these few things must be achieved by us when we are designing this whole thing. So by designing any what we are achieving or what the Bangladesh government will achieve, obviously the transparency, accountability, connectivity, efficiency, citizen-centric or citizen satisfactions. These are the pillars which will get created with the foundation created by NEA, and the foundation is, like I said, interoperability, mobility, security, technology, and infrastructures. So what we will do? So I have talked about a lot of things that interoperability will be there and this and that will be there. So how it is going to happen? How we will approach for it? Uh, okay, so first thing is no. I believe that no enterprise architecture or any design or such kind of a design is something which you can inherit from somewhere. You can start. You can have a baseline, but then you have to tailor it. You have to tailor it as per the need, the requirement of the enterprise. And here we are talking about government. And government for me is an enterprise of enterprise. Each department in itself is an enterprise. Okay, so it's so first thing we are going to do, and we have already started. We have a multiple round of discussions with AGI. We have discussion NID team, and we are going to need much more ministries to understand what are the initiatives they have taken, what are the challenges they are facing, what are the ground realities they have, and we will start building the vision, the requirement, the base requirement on basis of those meetings, those outcomes which are going to be our first step. So first we will and we are in process of understanding the complete landscape, the DNA, if I may say so. Once that DNA and the understanding is in place, definitely we will come out with the vision. And the vision will drive us for the principles, which principles will drive us for the the reference architectures. Now, reference architecture is a very important thing here. That means we will not be providing, or NEA is not providing a complete package to you that okay, this is the architecture, go and implement it. It's a reference. Reference means that's a baseline for any department. That means it gives you a scope of doing something new, evolve more than what is there in the reference, and but reference will give you the boundary line, right? And boundary line definitely doesn't mean that you cannot cross the boundary, but crossing the boundary will have its own governance management, which will ensure that this happens within the limits and the principles and visions which has been taken, which has been derived after such a huge exercise. Okay, so enterprise architecture is there, your business reference model is there, your data reference model is there. We have created a guidelines, and the first biggest question my mind will come that okay, so is it working? Will it work, or will it? How it is going to behave on the ground? So we have taken the third step as well, which is called implementation. So we have taken three e-services. One is for food procurement system, where we will take up the last mile reach of will reach till the farmers with the SMS based system, supported by the complete workforce systems as well. We'll also we have taken the e-pension for the primary school teachers, where complete pension management will be done for the teachers, and then the general ID system, where the complaints, online complaints can be registered. So these are the three e-services we have taken up, which we will do the hands-on implementation on the ground on the basis of the complete design and the architecture which is being created by us and which is being recommended by us. And what will be the outcome of these e-services is not just the e-services, but we will also prove that how the real component can be created by developing such kind of an application. For example, there is a term called service delivery platform. So e-services will not be a bespoke development which is going to have some workflow steps which has been done and then executed. It will be more on how there will be a platform which will have a proven workflow engines, rule engines, which will be used to create those e-services. And why we are using this platform, that in future, same platform, similar approach can be used for developing more e-services as well, by ensuring that there is no vendor locking, there is no technology specific, so that those principles guidelines will be taken care when we will be designing the architecture. When we will be implementing, definitely we are going to take up some of the technology, but that technology will ensure the open standard interoperability, open standard exchange of data, that will go for web services, that will have a service-oriented architecture, so that the data, the information, and all those things can be openly shared with the rest of the application. Nothing will be proprietary. So if you see that, on the rightmost side, lower three blocks, these will be the outcomes of those three e-services which we will be implementing. So once this whole process of NEA will happen, again, so when we were second time presenting to EDSER, and we were using, we are like, architects, we are very used to a word called, TOGAF, where we use EDSER TOGAF. So EDSER said, no, what we are going to develop is Bangladesh enterprise architecture. So yes, we have taken that account and we have started that way. We will start, we will take TOGAF as a baseline, but what finally will be the outcome will be the Bangladesh enterprise architecture. It will completely for Bangladesh, addressing the Bangladesh, the concerns. So quickly, I'll take you through the components of NEA. Then what are the components which will be delivered as part of the NEA initiative? Policy and strategy architecture. So the standards, policies, guidelines, these will be uh, delivered. Then your business reference model. The business reference model, any development when you start, you have to have a business architecture or the business requirement in place. And business requirement derives the functional architecture, the functional requirement, and then you identify the functional components of that particular business. So the BRM will be one of the deliverables from us, and a few things like we will be designing the building blocks. We will be defining the, the few questions, typical when we talk about business, what is the difference between service and system? That is one thing we sometimes we get confused. And what is G2C, G2B, how this whole service is going to get there. So the DRM will take care of the functional building blocks of Bangladesh, as a reference model. Then definitely we'll come out with the DRM, that is data reference model, where we'll identify what, the data can be a departmental specific data like healthcare I talked about. And then there can be a core database which I should like to call a centralized data like NIT, the citizen database or the land data. So we will come out with a complete approach, architecture and reference model for data modeling. Then security. So if you see TOGAF, you will find they majorly talk about business reference model, data reference model, technology reference model, and application reference model. But I've taken security reference model little separately from there because security is something which cut across every block. So when we talk about business, we have to talk about security because then and there you are deciding the roles, who's going to do what. That is part of security. When you start implementing in application, now you have to take care of the application level securities. When you will implement and not only application, you also have to take care of the repository systems. You have to take care of the versionings and all, which you are doing with the applications. Once the application gets deployed or is getting deployed, then you have to take care of the security at the infrastructure level, and then on not only infrastructure level, then your access level. So at each step of implementing ICT, security is there. We will take call. The enterprise architecture will can guide you that how much security you should go for. And one more thing, overdoing of anything is bad or is killing. So this in National Enterprise Architecture Initiative will also will get into do's and don'ts. When I'm saying do's and don'ts, maybe a particular data or particular application doesn't need that level of security, which is actually costing you much more than the application you are developing or the infrastructure. So we have to be very clear what to do and when to do. It's not only about security, sir. You need security, let's go for security. Next pillar will be application reference model, where we will get into the application architecture. We'll also define the standards. Again, do's and don'ts. So what happens when, in any department? My experience is that again, so there will be certain things which are very specific to the department or which are very specific to the country. I'll take an example like payroll. So if you take any ERP, it has HRMS, but the payroll is always specific to the country. Why? Because the taxation, because the ground policies they have. So the decision needs to be taken what you want to build, what you want to buy. When you want to go for a cost kind of a approach, and when you want to really want to build. So, and what are the pros and cons in doing that? Not only build and buy, maybe you would like to, the way the technologies are emerging, you will also like to go for an application as a service. So maybe a small department can take HRMS as a service from a very bigger department who's already having a SAP or Oracle kind of implementation. So that can also be, we can think about all those things, and accordingly the approach should be taken. So when we talk about application reference model, it will not only talk about the architecture, it will also talk about the guidelines, the open standards, how to ensure that your application don't get into the proprietary things, which is one of the most challenging things which one enterprise can get into. Just imagine, which is not the case in Bangladesh. And just giving an example is that if healthcare is using some proprietary database for storing the patient data, then just imagine tomorrow if you want to access that data and then you are stuck with the technology. That's the only technology you can use now. And this is something a government doesn't need and must ensure that the open standards is being followed by any ICT implementations across the country. Uh, Then one of the very interesting initiative here we will be taking is the NEA bus. NEA bus is a national enterprise architecture bus. Okay, so bus is enterprise service bus, which we are talking about here. But it's not enterprise service bus as a product, it's an enterprise service bus as a concept. So what is the concept? Like I said in the data reference model, we will identify certain core services and the core data, which is the centralized data for the nation, again, citizen land and all those things. And then such accessibility of such a data will be through this NEA bus, which will be designed. So there will be a central service repository for Bangladesh from where those services can be accessed, which are cutting across the departments, which are cutting across the ministries. I'll take an example. Let's say if healthcare wants to have a wants to identify a patient as a, he wants to do a deduplication and say that, okay, I want to identify the duplicate patient. Now there are two things he can do. He can go for a demographic data, that is what is father name, mother's name, location, and all those things. But that has a percentage of error when you do the demographic matching, especially when you are into a bilingual thing. Then you can go for a biometric kind of implementation, take all the biometrics of the patient, which is, neither advisable, nor just think about that somebody is coming here for treatment and you are telling us just give the biometric first. But then you already have implemented that in an ID where you have biometrics, you have everything in place. All you have to do is that if the patient is getting registered there, you can get it verified with your NID data and come out with the single patient identification. So this is just one example. A similar kind of examples. For example, bank. If you somebody goes there and wants to open an account there, so then again he needs a service from NID. So any bus will ensure that the services which are common across departments and places will be a central repository from where it can be accessed. Finally, last but not the least is the technology reference model, which will cover the complete your data center, your infrastructure, your network, your the cloud approach, elasticity approach, cloud, which all things are coming in, and the green data center kind of approaches, how to manage the power, because there is definitely a large amount of power, wastage happens in the data center. Sometimes, okay, again in data center, there can be multiple examples. You will find, an application which is not that mission critical, having a DCDR and everything in place, which you may not need. You may need just DC with a, a good backup policy or backup system. If that application, provided that application doesn't need that criticality. But at the same time, if you are dealing with, something like an IT kind of a data, you need definitely need not only DR, you need an active DR, DCDR, so that the availability of that particular application happens. So when we talk about the technology architecture, we will talk about all these guidelines, approaches, and the reference model. Okay, so the pillars are ready, the hut is there, but the foundation is missing. And the foundation is missing because foundation is something which ensures that this hut will stay much longer. And that foundation is the governance and management. Yesterday, when Tariq sir and we and were discussing, we were saying that, this is a living document. This NEA is a living document. I partially agree with Tariq sir. Why I said partially, because document is not living. So I'll say living system. I would like to call it a living system. It is a system which will evolve step by step, which will evolve even after EY delivers the complete the enterprise architecture. And it needs to evolve because technology is changing, needs is changing, citizens are becoming demanding, things are changing, right? So accordingly, we have to evolve. The architecture needs to be evolved. So that's why the base will be management and monitoring. I'll take you quickly through this slide. So, what will be our approach as an NEA? What NEA will be doing? So, you have done something. Let's take an example of a department. So, like I have mentioned of applications, so department has done something. So, that is your assets. The NEA should support you how to take your assets and scale your assets. But at the same time, that's the references you will get, the guidelines, handholding you will get. But the target, the final architecture will be owned by the department only. Department should own the architecture, and that's the whole intention of this NEA. NEA here is to create a baseline for the departments to evolve. Okay, so one last quick slide which I wanted to share with you is the traceability. So what traceability here means that whenever we think about any application, how do we validate that okay the architecture works? One is like we are implementing. Second is is the BRM right with is the business architecture is right with the application architecture is right with the infrastructure architecture. So that traceability of the requirement, how it is getting converted at each stage, should be there and should be seen. And I'll take an example here as well. For example, there is a need of mobility, mobile feature. So at the time of the business requirement on the architecture, it should be very clear how much you want to expose on the mobile. Everything cannot. All features cannot come on mobile, right? So it has to be very crisp and clear. So on the basis of the requirement of the mobility, at the business level will define that what kind of a application layer or application architecture you need for that. Maybe you will be needing a complete mobile enterprise application platform, which is or deep, or you just need one more service layer, which is exposing simple application, business applications into JSON objects as a service to mobile. So, and after that application, on the feature of those implementation application, you will get into the infrastructure or technology implementation as well. Because do you need PDAs or smartphone will do, or only Androids needed? So those kind of questions and those kind of needs. I'll give you an example very quickly. And if you are doing a public health monitoring system and you want to distribute a mobility solution to your workers, only simple Android solution that will work. You don't have to get into the multiple application and technologies as well. So everything is not open and everything should not be taken in that approach. So Bangladesh architecture, once it is created, there will be a repository system. And when I started that, it is an NE system. This is what it will be look like, where you have a complete architecture in place. You have reference models, you have libraries and standards in place. And I'll just take you through one simple flow where, let's say, three departments come to the any repository system and wants to create their own architecture. The all three departments will get into the requirement repository. Through the requirement repository, they will see that okay, the guidelines, the principles, the BRMs which are available for them, is it suitable or not? So if it is suitable, they will take up those documents. They will start designing their own architecture. But then it may happen that the requirement because of the change of the technology, there is a change needed within the NE as well. So in that case, if you see, then the request from the department, so the department came as a seeker, but now the department also giving the feedback that okay, these are my requirements, which may or may not be fulfilled by your repository, and this is where the complete NEA governance and management system will get into studying the requirement, coming out with the changes which is needed, logging it so that there is a complete log and monitoring that what is changed, why it has been changed, and is this change consistent. And accordingly, those will be incorporated back into the reference libraries, which will be reused by the the future requirements. So that's why I'm trying to say that it's not only a document, it's a system which we are talking about here. Uh, so One last slide is about the NEA assessment framework. So, how do I know that the architecture which we have created is successful or not? Or, how I'm going to assess? So these are the few pillars which we'll talk about. Is like is it citizen centricity is there or not? Common infrastructure and operability is there or not? Collaborative services and business operations are being taken care of now. And public sector governance, like business functions, ownership, outcome, accountability, governance, structure and policies, institutional of governance will be there. Network organization model, social inclusions, and transparent and open government. So these are the few parameters, and it's not only the parameters which we are suggesting. If you see that, these are the global parameters on which any of the EA designs of any of the countries is being, being seen on, or is this is the kind of scale on numbers which is being seen. Um, Critical success factor is something which I really want to take opportunity to share here as well. That from the start I said, this is not something which can be done in silence. So we'll be needing active, proactive rather I should say. I may say that from the participation from the ministries and departments, what they want to see in their ICT initiatives, what actually they see as a value, then assessment and evaluation of existing Bangladeshi needs, so which we are doing. Continuous evaluation of NEA system, which is like, again, I'm saying that this whole initiative is not a one-time work, it's a recursive process. We have to carry it and we have to evolve along with the journey. Political will, definitely. So that is one thing which in any of the government globally is needed to make any of the government enterprise architecture successful. Then management and monitoring on the return of investment. Yes, there is an investment happening. So we must see the value of coming out of it. And then the industry involvement. Industry involvement and ministry involvement is very important because that brings the ground technology experience, ground functional requirements, challenges, and risks. And the fostering skilled ICT workforce. So yes, definitely the ICT capacity building for ICT technologies and architecture is needed, which is going to be one of the most critical success factor. I think so. Let me ask you this frank question: am I boring? No. Let me be frank. Let's discuss. Is it boring? I'm not hearing. So it is boring. So that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. If it is boring, yeah, I can see here on the panel. So why don't we discuss? Why don't you? So I would really request question me wherever you think that it's becoming complex, or because it is PPT. I understand. We are talking. What I'm talking about is that, okay, this is the term DRM, and all those things. So if you can give me some questions, maybe I can make it more relevant for you. So that will be more, much better. So it's a panel, it's a discussion happening. It's not a plain presentation. So because I can sense it on the panel, like I have gone through 5 slides and now I'm thinking that whether I have crossed my time limit or should I stop or shouldn't I? So and I'm being very frank. See, I'm not here to just to deliver something point by point. Read it. I can give it to you in the hard copy and you can read it. Sure. Sure. Oh, okay, sure. So I think I would like to stop the presentation here with the critical success factors, which is the most critical part of this whole initiative. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation for the national enterprise architecture. Actually, the topic is little bit difficult to and is new in our concept. I can just realize that it has to be discussed again and again and has to be circulated more among the stakeholders and the industry so that they are on board, because national enterprise architecture is just not a document. It will require that the industry participates with it and comes up with more solutions for the government and adheres to the standards that will be created under the national enterprise architecture. And it is a living document, and there will be a process where when the technology changes, we will have changes incorporated into it. So I would now request the panelist, Mr. Kevin L. Jackson, to say something about it.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to address and talk about the national e-architecture. We, this previous speaker asked, was this boring? Well, it's not boring. It is complex, but it is also critical. It's very critical and important to understand, because there's many, many pieces, and all of the pieces are moving. And that's one of the reasons I believe it's important for a government, an organization of government, to have a focused strategy and to know what the goal is, what the end goal is. Because without a target, without a goal, it doesn't really matter how you get there, right? So one of the reasons I was asked to come here is because I have a long history of working with governments in building and transitioning into cloud computing infrastructures. My presentation here is building a cloud for the government, agile, scalable, secure, and usable. But the fact is, cloud computing is not an end state. It's not an end state. And cloud computing is really not about technology. It's not even about technology. Cloud computing is really a new approach to information technology. It's a new approach to the provisioning and consumption of not the technology, but the information that's embedded in the technology. Cloud computing is a services-oriented architecture that's implemented typically on a virtualized infrastructure. It provides compute, storage, network. It uses commodity components in order to keep the cost low. But it's very highly automated controls that enables visibility into the infrastructure. And this also enables 5 essential characteristics of cloud computing. Now, everyone wants to go to cloud because of all the benefits, and everyone has a concern. Security has always been the #1 concern, all right? But the essential characteristics are crucial as you do this transition, because that's where the real value lies to the government. So over the past 5, 6, 8 years, the US federal government has gone through a similar transition. And as governments do, before they know what they're going to do, they have to agree on a definition. So as it was in the US government, the National Institute of Standards and Technology came up with a agreed to definition of cloud computing that had these 5 characteristics. I think it's important for the government of Bangladesh, as they look towards the future, towards developing this national e-architecture, not to really worry about the formal definition, but what value that attaining that definition really provides to the constituents within the country. For instance, on-demand self-service. Many organizations, when you look at cloud computing, say, you don't need on-demand if you're going to have a cloud. But the value is that on-demand enables the government to be responsive to its constituents. If you're not responsive to your constituents, then you're not fulfilling your job. What about broad network access? Part of the national e-architecture is ensure that there's enough bandwidth across the last mile. That's a great technological goal, but what is that value? Well, the value really is that the government services is always available when it's needed. You never know when or where a constituent, a citizen needs support from the government. So you always want to be there. You always want to be there. Resource pooling. So what is resource pooling? This is really the idea of getting away from silos of information technology, where Bureau A has their own IT, and Bureau B has their own IT, and Bureau C has their own. And everybody is doing it independent of everyone else. Resource pooling is when you have a shared services environment, which is, as I said, an essential characteristic of cloud computing, but it is not the normal operating mode for most governments worldwide. You're not alone in this. But what does resource pooling does? It ensures, it supports an affordability factor with respect to delivering information technology. Without shared services, without resource pooling, then you can't afford to deliver the services that the citizens need, that they desire, that they actually should have. Rapid elasticity, the ability to scale up and scale down based upon your immediate demand and needs. This means that you don't waste resources. This means that you deliver sufficient resources when needed, where needed, but once the need is satisfied, you can scale back down and you're not wasting resources. You're not wasting money. It's very important to be able to not just scale up, but to scale down. And it has a time factor. And finally, measured services is part of the formal definition. The ability to count what's being delivered, when it's being delivered, and where it's being delivered. Traditionally, information technology has not been delivered in a measured fashion. IT has just been a cost center. There's a line item in the budget. You put money towards that line item. If it's enough, fine. You make sure. If you have too much money, what do? You spend what you have less, so you hit your budget, because you don't want to miss the budget and get less money next year, but that's waste. Measured services ensures that you have auditable services. Auditable IT is critical to preventing misuse, because misuse is the waste of the taxpayers' resources and the taxpayers' money. And if you misuse, then you're not fulfilling the fiduciary responsibilities of government. So cloud computing, in a lot of ways, helps the government meet its expectations of the citizens. I always like to look at case studies because this is something that really happened. And it's instructive for an organization that's going down the path to see what happened in the past. Because this could be the view of your future, how you could be successful. This one happens to be the Energy Department in the United States, Los Alamos National Laboratory. And they started off on a path, and they actually developed an infrastructure on demand and a private cloud back in 2010. But what did they need to do in order to be successful in that was to put in virtualization, where they actually decommissioned 100 physical servers, deployed over 300 virtual machines on 13 different physical hosts. So they leveraged technology, this virtualization, as a first step on their path. But in order to be successful with virtualization, they have to have capacity planning tools, and they have to put in measurement tools so they could meter and monitor what was going on. This resulted in a $1.4 million in cost savings and another $1.4 million in cost avoidance. And they got a return on that investment in less than 1 year. But it wasn't the end of their path, right? They put up self-service portals across this infrastructure as a service, but not from a single cloud service provider. They used multiple cloud service providers. They had on-premise services. They also had corporately or organizationally provided services. And they also had public clouds that they used. Provided choice, but also provided competition. And it avoided lock-in. Because if you have lock-in, then you get waste. Yes?
About cloud computing, but what is the connection with the cloud computing and national enterprise architecture? Bangladesh government's national enterprise architecture and cloud computing, I think these are two different subjects.
Actually, that's an excellent question. But the national e-infrastructure is providing the baseline, the foundation for growth towards information technology and building of the ICT infrastructure and within Bangladesh. And that's the path. The path is towards reduced cost of information technology. That is the end. Cloud computing is the end.
We are actually talking about that architecture.
Okay. The enterprise architecture is critical towards getting that goal. And without having the goal, then you make mistakes in building the architecture. So success was in reducing procurement, reducing cost, and improving security. And these are all things that you want in your e-architecture. You need to have security in your e-architecture. So as you go through the development of the e-architecture, you should remember that this is not a one-time thing. You're going to be going towards a hybrid environment, a hybrid architecture, where you're going to have enterprise, organizational IT, outsourced IT, and cloud services. This is not a single thing. You're going to be transitioning from a manual data center operation to a highly automated data center operations. These require changes in mindsets. Your funding model for your national e-architecture, is it going to be completely capital intensive, where you're always going to just buy new hardware, buy new software, buy hours in developing this? Or are you going to understand where your future is, where it's going to be operational, where you want to be able to select, manage, and monitor IT services instead of buying, building, running, and refresh? The question is the national e-architecture going to learn from the mistakes of the past, or is it going to repeat the mistakes of the past? And security. Traditionally, architectures have been built with an infrastructure-centric security mindset, which says everything inside of my infrastructure is safe and everything outside of my infrastructure is not safe. So when you build the national e-architecture, are you going to build it with that mentality? If so, then you cannot effectively participate in the international economics, because internationally you have to be able to exchange data and protect your information and transition to a data-centric security model. All these things are part of multiple parallel transitions that enterprises and nations must go through in order to be successful in the IT world. These are new thought processes. Infrastructure, going from traditional to cloud. Deployment models, going from private deployed models to hybrid deployment models. Going from infrastructure to data-centric security. Understanding that changing from a physical world, going to a virtual world, requires changes in your governance, requires changes in the way you do business. Going from manual to automated. The whole idea of transitioning from a product-centric view to a service-centric view in IT is new. It's different. It requires changes in governance, changes in your processes, changes in your business models. Are you putting those thoughts in place as you build your national e-architecture? If not, this will become a destination, not a journey. There is a decision framework for cloud migration that could be helpful as you migrate to your national e-architecture. You should select services, not build services. You should know how to provision and deprovision services so as not to get locked in to a certain technology or a certain vendor. You should be able to manage your IT and manage the risk. Instead of listing requirements and directing your vendor to meet specific requirements, you need to be able to let the vendors build in cost-effective manners and then choose and be able to modify. This is a dynamic environment you're going into. So in summary, cloud computing, e-architecture is much more than technology. If you're only thinking about technology, you're making a huge mistake. Transitions require technology, require governance, collaboration, cooperation, and focused change management. Focused change management. The value of going through these transitions is real, it's dramatic, and it's long lasting. But it definitely requires a long-term strategic plan like the national e-architecture. It definitely needs achievable and measurable results. You need to fold that into your strategy. So thank you very much. I hope some of these lessons will help you as you transition into IT future of Bangladesh.
Thank you very much. Let me remind the panelists that the sole goal of this workshop is to put forward or to demonstrate our work, what we have done for the national enterprise architecture, and to take a feedback from the panelists and the audience to move ahead. Thank you very much for giving us an insight on the cloud. but I would request the next panelist to be more focused on the national enterprise architecture that we have presented, and we would like to know more about your experiences and how we can improve on the presentation that we have provided, and look forward for something more on what we have done and what are the missing links or the gaps in the presentation that has been presented for the Bangladesh National Enterprise Architecture. So I would now request Mr. Craig Price to be on the stage and give his opinion on the national enterprise architecture that we have presented and what more we need to do about it. Thank you.
Can I raise a question? You were supposed to talk about national enterprise architecture presentation, and the panelists are supposed to respond on that. But we are getting presentation.
Yes, the previous presentation.
We need to talk about the presentation. I already the keynote presented.
Yeah.
But a lot of presentations we are getting lost.
Yeah, so now we are getting more focus on the national enterprise architecture.
Good afternoon. I understand it's a very large topic, the national enterprise architecture. And I suppose my background is telecommunications. So what I was going to present on is what we see in terms of as an international operator, what we see is the focus on communications, which came through the first and second presentation. Now, if that's all you want to hear talk about, or we to speak about, then I'm quite happy to give it to other panelists to talk about more detailed architectural elements that make up the service.
We would like to hear more about the first presentation that we had on national enterprise architecture. We would like to hear your experiences of national enterprise architecture and more. And if there are gaps, what are the gaps we need to look at it, and what are the pitfalls that we should be focused on?
In that case, what I'd like to present on, and I'll go through a lot of the slides, is that I would like to talk about the capacity requirements to enable communications within the national framework, and also the capacity requirements that Bangladesh needs to be able to take advantage of its national architecture. Okay. So if you bear with me, I'll just go through a number of slides here. I suppose that if I look at Bangladesh as a country and look at Bangladesh over the last 25 years, in terms of communications, you've been incredibly innovative. If I measure communications and how well you actually communicate within the country itself, I can do that by looking at mobile penetration and your mobile coverage. So generally, if I look at that particular element, you have a strong national communications infrastructure today. You're also, in terms of the services that are being provided, you've just now implemented 3G. So you're going through a stage where you're beginning to implement new IP technologies. The IP technologies, which are critical to enable this to actually work, because access to information as is needed is a key requirement of the future vision of the national infrastructure requirements. So I think in terms of the structure itself and what you're looking for, I think Bangladesh is well positioned to take advantage of its national architecture. And I also think that the architecture's vision for the future is quite sustainable. I think if I look at the digital Bangladesh vision and look at what you're trying to achieve in terms of services in the IT village, your health services, your community services, I think you're moving on par with, to me, you're moving on par with what's happening globally in terms of other countries and what they're doing in terms of their architecture. I think there's an opportunity to extend the architecture beyond just government services, but take the same architectural positioning and move towards other services which can be looked in the commercial environment. So as you develop your government services, look beyond the government services and also look at opportunity in terms of even business process outsourcing and working and doing, entering into joint ventures in the business world in terms of the overall architecture and taking that to the overall market, because I think there's great opportunity there. But I do also think that to be successful, you need to continually focus on the costs of your both domestic and international connectivity. And I think there needs to be some priority in terms of focusing on securing investments to improve your overall communications. And I think you need to encourage increased connectivity to the world at large. So while you're developing your architecture, keep in mind that there's huge development opportunities that exist by taking the same architecture and encouraging other companies to be part of the process. And by that I mean encouraging companies like Google or Tencent with the Chinese Facebook or Facebook become part of the journey. So not just look at the government opportunity, look at opportunities beyond the government in terms of working with companies on a global scale. They do exist, and certainly we are partnering now with operators now to bring those partnerships and actually bring them to fruition.
Yes, Mr. Craig, we are running out of time, so if you have just one comment, anything on national enterprise architecture that we have presented, can you do that? Because I would like to ask the second panelist to come in.
Okay, it's one comment I need to make is that your enterprise architecture is based on communication and access to information. It's important that you focus on that at a national level and an international level. It's because it's not just the domestic connectivity that matters. We're becoming increasingly part of a globally connected world. So please consider your international infrastructure and ensure that as a country moving forward, we take advantage of the communication opportunities that exist in the world today. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now request Mr. Mustaq Ahmed from BICC, who has already been part of the National Enterprise Architecture Development Process of South Africa, to give us a brief on the National Enterprise Architecture.
that, I was one of the person who wrote like the project concept paper and also project proposal for support to ICT task project in Dhaka. And before that, I did Bangladesh first birth registration information.
Please go into the details.
Okay, I'm going into details. Okay, so enterprise architecture is supposed to unify the processes. It is supposed to document the thing. It is supposed to, in South Africa, if you don't have the enterprise architecture, Trinity will not release the fund. So if you want to buy a new system, you need to have the enterprise architecture. Show your architect what you want to do. Does it conform with the enterprise framework? If it doesn't do it, then still today you cannot actually get funding. But what did in South Africa, when we are working in South Africa on a province called Gauteng, where the Johannesburg is, Gauteng shared services. So we actually did all the enterprise architecture models. Like enterprise architecture, you cannot actually try to reinvent the wheel because there is somebody already or some of those things. So one of the things is called Jaffman model. So even we made the Jaffman came and gave the explanation. We found a very brilliant thing, and the government, one of the department, when we went to deep down to detail, we found like one of the government departments spent almost 4 years with Jaffman model and with the case-wise software to implement, because it's a living document. As Ramesh was saying, it's a living document, so you need to have a repository. So what is a repository? There is a tool to do that. So that tool in South Africa, we have been like commonly using called case-wise. So the case-wise, you can actually put up the Jaffman framework or TOGAF or even federal enterprise architecture or even partner methodology. But the problem is, like, I'm just showing you, like, because as I'm rushing, because I had like almost like 30 or 40 minutes presentation. This is called Jaffman framework. So it's almost similar to what your framework is, but your framework is adopted as a Bangladesh framework. But I can still see some of the things that I found in the architecture in some of the provinces in South Africa which are failed. And apparently around like 70 to 80% of all enterprise architecture in the whole world fails, including most of the US government federal architecture fails. Please bear in mind, because all those good stories of enterprise architecture will fail if you don't do the right thing, if you don't learn the lessons from why other countries actually fail those things. So here is the thing called enterprise architecture, Jackman model. I spent a lot of time. I went to the even the training on it. I was one of the architect and modeler for this thing for almost 2.5 years. Then after that, I found my department and head senior architect is saying we're no longer following Jackman framework. We'll be following TOGAF. So here is the TOGAF. This is the exactly same model which my previous speaker was actually showing. And then we found also in TOGAF, like don't go into anything. Because if you go deep into any aspect of TOGAF, for example, business architecture or application architecture, data architecture, or technical architecture, at the beginning at national level, you will fail. Because you are able to do, like Bangladesh is quite a big country, billions of people here. If you are to go for each and every requirement deep down into the bottom, you're not able to finish it. So that's why what actually happened, like we found like an easy enterprise architecture model, and then I implemented in Swaziland, and I found a good result. I did in Swaziland, I did their health. First, I did in Swaziland, we call it master system plan rather than enterprise architecture. So we use like enterprise architecture model and methodologies to make a master system plan because they want to have a plan, like how much money will be required to invest in Swaziland for next 5 to 10 years. So the enterprise architecture gives you the plan because it can actually define, like if you put the enterprise architecture all the requirement into case wise, you can draw down a report like what are the quick win projects in there. You will be able to identify, you can actually identify different projects, and then you can actually scale it down like different multi-year level. Like this year, these many projects I want to implement, these are the output that I want to go about. So in Swaziland, what we did, like we actually set up like supply side of the enterprise architecture. I can see in here, but I can see a bit of missing there. Maybe tomorrow, if I have some time, maybe I can talk more detail about Ramesh. I don't want to like go into deep down into it. But I'm saying like there is a supply side of the enterprise architecture, you need to think of it. There's absolutely no IT there. Is your policy, is your organizational people and your processes, business processes. Those are the fundamental things. If you are wrong in there, your technology application, everything will be wrong. So what we actually did, like we actually took the policy because you cannot do the enterprise architect, you cannot do the policies. You need to take the policy, evaluate it, then you actually check like who are executing this policy, like the people in organization. Then you go into like processes, what are the business processes, what are the maturity level, there is a capability maturity model, that model is available, you need to put it up there. I have also document. If you want to share like other countries, I can actually share with you guys. As we are discussing for time, then once you have the business process defined, then you can move into the information. Because process each and every loop needs some information in and needs some information out. Then those are the areas where in government we use forms. So those forms you need to actually understand and do some sort of review of it. Do you need all those forms? In health, when you did for Swaziland, we found over 670 forms are used in the health data collection. Because different donors pay some money, they actually need a form, then they use that form. So we actually did a calculation. We found like around 25 minutes for a health professional needs for the like filling up the form in the actual work. So enterprise architecture will give you that. So this is
running out of time, so we will have to cut it down here. And anyway, we are invited to visit Bangladesh Computer Council tomorrow, and we can have a detailed discussion with our NEA team. The
yeah, thank you very much.
question that I have here is Mr. Dr. Sanjeev Kumar Gupta. What I would like to ask him is, he has doing land automation projects in India. So, if he can tell us how the national enterprise architecture can be used in 2 minutes time, because we have to take questions from the audience.
First of all, I would like to thank the Bangladesh side for the work security and being opportunity to participate. So, in India, we have new government, and the vision of the government is very clear. Our Honorable Prime Minister want electronic delivery of the services, information to what?
We would like a comment on the Bangladesh architecture, on national enterprise architecture. So you don't have any comment. Then we would like to take questions from the audience on our national enterprise architecture, which we have presented, and we would like to take questions from the audience on the national enterprise architecture of Bangladesh, which has been presented.
Hello? So I have a question. India is our neighbor country and our friendly country. So we have our architecture plan and we have our own. So is there anything that India is planning to help in our architecture or knowledge sharing or any other thing that we both can do benefited or something like that in government level? Is there any plan or something?
Being a neighbor, we are always welcome your proposal, and in fact, some certain proposals you just forward to us. We are ready to receive a proposal and accordingly help you.
Any question specific to national enterprise architecture that has been presented?
Yes, sir.
I think from the presentation of Mr. Rustan that there is a big role of policy and strategy to play in the next stage of and how you are actually the mapping. I think what he was trying to say that there must be a mapping from the strategy and policies to the infrastructure level and to the application level. So from in your presentation, I have not seen much of that. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for asking this question, sir. The any components slide, if I can get that slide back, the first pillar of the component was BRM, which is a business reference model. Before I started talking about application technology, these are something which comes very later on. So when we talk about reference model, what it is, it actually talks about the business strategies, processes, policies, which will get into to design the business architecture of that particular department. And I want to clarify one more thing with this that there are two things. And please be, I want to be very clear on these two things. One is I can give an exact answer to a question. This is an architecture design for a department. And I can give you a skill so that you find the answer of your own question. That is what NEA is doing. I'm giving you a reference model. I'm giving a platform where the architecture, business architecture, information architecture will evolve with the department specific needs. So the NEA as a Bangladesh is not something here for policing. We are not here to say that, okay, if you don't follow this, there is no architecture for you. So if you don't have a policy in place, if you don't have a process in place, we will not do anything with you. If you don't have a process in place, this is the BRN, the policies and the standards which we recommend to you. Let's discuss together and evolve with your own business architecture. So BRM to BA, that is the business reference model to business architecture. And that is what the NEA first component was talking about, sir.
Hello, it's a question to everyone. Anybody can answer. I know this architecture and everything looks great. So, what is the means of communication, infrastructure? How to take this information from point A to point B? So, these are all the. So, what are the infrastructure or communication means of communication?
Okay,
How do we take
let me answer that question. If you look at it, it's a big jigsaw puzzle that we have. There are a number of projects that the Bangladesh government is running. One is Bangla government, another is Info Sarkar. These projects are connecting all the government office across the country up to Upazila level. And we are setting up data centers and regional data centers to host the data. And now what we see that each of there are various departments, and within the department there are various groups. So these groups are creating make numbers of information systems. They are overlapping and they do not communicate with each other. So this is the national enterprise architecture is going to come here and make sure that we do not over use or misuse our scarce resources. And the second thing is that once the enterprise architecture is here, we will have the partnership. We are not doing it alone. The government is not doing it alone. We are using the industry. Industry is our partner, and the information systems and the applications that we run on these big network that we are creating will adhere to the national enterprise architecture and will be built by the industry. So the industry and the government will work together for the implementation of this national enterprise architecture. Thank you.
So I haven't finished it. So that means whatever we are doing right now, whatever they said so far, basically it's a long shot. And whatever the government is right now doing is means of communication. Unless and until we establish the robust communications means, it will be very difficult to implement whatever they just said today. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh, in a way, you're right, and the robust network will be up and running by the end of this year. We have already connected part of the country, and the later part will be connected and will be up and running.
So this is basically under the infrastructure.
The infrastructure and the Bangla government, those are doing it.
Okay, so where we can get the updated information and the time frame.
By Bangla government is scheduled to be completed by March this year, and the infrastructure is scheduled to be completed by September this year. So we will see a lot of change in the communication infrastructure within the government.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question is basically in your own statement in answer to this question, you mentioned that there's a possibility or there was a possibility of overlapping functions, misuse, and other things like this. Because projects, with all due respect, have a tendency not to know about others, but concentrate on the project itself without knowing. So has a proper mapping of the present situation, because you use the word baseline. And as for baseline, I understand that the baseline means you have a baseline of what is there as of now, what is progressing, and because I'm a GIS mapping guy, so we know what crosses which way. Okay? Because you talk in the terms of layers. And if you know each layer, you can concentrate on what could be a collision course. So I would like an answer.
So, okay, so first one is that for you, any Bangladesh, any architecture is an orchestrator across all the designs and architectures are going on. When I'm saying I'm single orchestrator, then I will ensure that there is no reinventing the wheel across. That is one. But like in my presentation when we were discussing, I said we are creating the baseline. We are in a process of what already has been done and what can be reused, what cannot be. And there will be a situation. Yeah, please.
My question would be that if you realize, because the projects seem to have a life of their own and they keep continuing, can you or is the government in a position to stop something in its tracks because they realize it's the wrong process or it should be kind of taken care of?
So I think the answer will have two parts. One is government in a situation of taking that call? That is, I think Tariq sir will answer. But as an architect team, yes, we will come in a situation where we can recommend or we can come out with an output that okay, this initiative may take you in a wrong investment or right investment. That's my job, transparent.
The National Enterprise Architecture Approval Committee, we are proposing is something quite important and exceptional. So once that committee is approved, I think we will have the National Enterprise Architecture to be followed across the government, not just a single department or single institution. It will be a national, not individual.
First of all, thanks. I am not doing research on economics. First of all, I must thank you for highlighting the complexities of the national architecture. But it comes there's a single window and the language. These problems are actually have to come across because of work on page. Actually, here actually national architecture is not separate from the global architecture because the language you are able to write all your things, regulations in English also. At least one foreign language for Bangladesh. So that should be there. And Bengali, I think we can sort out one font. So that's not problem. So here, I don't know whether all the websites are putting all the things in English. I don't know. I think you can answer that. The second question actually relates to single. There are problems, but how to do it? Because it doesn't go. All the foreign pages, they want everything in one. How to? whether it is feasible or whether it is worthy or it is doable, we have to go towards certain process. How to do it? Thanks.
Okay, let me answer initially. Like suppose you buy a piece of land and you want to build a house and you need a permission from the electricity department, Raju, and so many institutions. So when you file an application, when the national enterprise architecture is there, it will be a seamless connectivity. So you file at one place and the applications will be traversing to all the organizations and you will get the your permission from their single window. That's what we are looking at. Now there is not there, but once the Digital Bangladesh Vision 2021 was declared in 2000, it started its journey from 2009, and we have just elapsed 6 years. So, so we are working on it. We have achieved a lot, but we have still a long way to go, and we are working towards achieving this seamless, integrated society. And it's not us alone. The citizens are with us. You are with us. We all work together to achieve the whatever issues that we come across.
Just to add, with sir, single window is something is very practical. Singapore is doing it, and they're one of the highest rating in India in terms of state service delivery platform. They are also doing it. They call it SSDG, and this is completely doable here as well. But across last three questions, if I pick from you, sir, for information from one thing I want to make very clear is that NEA or enterprise architecture is not a big bang approach. It is a baby steps taken in a right direction and achieving the target, which is big bang. So single window, maybe we will start with a portal where you can put your request. I can distribute in the department. Department may not be automated. One will be, then second will be, then third will be. But we can start with one. And this whole journey, that is the precisely my second slide was saying, this whole journey is not that in one day you will get something. Today we will start with small, but the architecture will ensure the seamlessness and the continuity of the growth of services or the business which we are talking about.
And now I will thank you all. And we are located at Bangladesh Computer Council. It's in Agargaon. If you still have any questions, any suggestions, please come drop by in Bangladesh Computer Council. We will have a longer detailed discussion. And now it's already 6 p.m. and there's another program scheduled. So I have to announce that thank you very much for participating and coming to this workshop, and look forward. Okay, there's one more part to it to the this. Okay.
Just one observation.
I think the national e-architecture cannot be complete if we change the letter P to something else. And that letter has to be P for people, or T for talent, or C for competence. So let me just take a minute to talk about the other parallel complementing program that BICC is running under the LICT project. Now, under this project, we are trying to prepare a cadre of 30,000 people, 10,000 for a top of IT program and 20,000 under the foundation skills program. Therefore, while the technical architecture is being set up, the human capability architecture is also parallelly being developed so that the country gets a band or a group of 30,000 people available for the next 3 years for the university graduates and the HSC graduates. And these people will be trained in different skills, certified, and therefore be available to implement this wonderful e-architecture that our team is trying to develop. I thought let's take this opportunity to extend this architecture to the human architecture as well. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you all. And I will be welcoming you, any one of you who have more suggestions and would like to share their expectations to visit Bangladesh Computer Council here, there, and we will be taking these notes of your concerns and your advices. Thank you.
Sir, those tokens.
Government Cloud has managed.
The dawn of a new change comes over this golden land of opportunity. Thanks to the initiatives of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, ICT is now growing stronger than ever, spreading in all corners of the country. The glimpse of which we saw in the digital world of 2014, creating a platform for the technological mass of this generation. To introduce the nation to the benefits of digitalization, connect and unite us globally. With the creation of the ICT division, we created a whole new world of possibilities. We will not only people, but train a new generation to control the platform. On the right of prosperity, we take everyone, penetrating far-flung regions of the future. For ours is a strong nation, the people, hard-working and tenacious. On behalf of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, State Minister of ICT, Mr. Zubair Ahmed Kaur, receiving the WSIS Past 10 Prize in 2014. The fruits of her labor and hard-earned Bangladesh has finally been able to conquer the International Telecommunication Union Council membership for the second time in a row. We are the innovators, riding on the wave of ICT. 01772. To push the country onwards to global success and help reach its peak. We are the idealists, and this is the future of Bangladesh, where we build high-tech parks for mega districts. In Bangladesh,